Pull up a chair for this one, because what I'm about to walk you through is not gossip. It's not a skit. It's not streamer theater cooked up for clips and donations. What happened inside Blueface house this week, on a live stream, in front of thousands of people watching in real time, is the single most disturbing piece of celebrity footage I have sat through all year, and I sat through a lot. A grown man, a platinum-selling rapper, a man who has been shot at, who has been in and out of jail, who has face tattoos on top of face tattoos, got so rattled by the pregnant woman carrying his child that he literally backed out of a room in his own home. On camera. And when you hear what she told him she'd been doing in that room, and what she's been feeding him every single time he walks through that door, you're going to understand exactly why he ran. And you're going to start asking yourself a question that I have not been able to shake for 3 days straight. What if none of this is a joke? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, I'm going to show you a pattern so specific, so repetitive, and so quietly terrifying that you will never look at a home-cooked meal the same way again. And I'm also going to read you confessions, real confessions, from real people, posted publicly, proudly, that are going to make the hair on your arms stand straight up. You already seen the thumbnail. Let's get into it. But hold on. Before we even touch the Blueface situation, I need to show you something else first, because it connects. It all connects. And by the time we circle back around to Blueface and Nevaeh, you're going to see the thread I saw. So there's a trend going around right now. Some of y'all already know it. It blew up off a song, Quiet on the Creek. And the whole gimmick is people posting their doorbell camera footage. Ring cameras, apartment hallway cams, all of it. And the clips are catching men slipping out of other people's apartments in the middle of the night. The whole joke of the trend is exposing men who are living double lives. Men who got a wife at home, a girlfriend, a whole public image, and they're creeping down somebody's hallway at 2 in the morning thinking the world is asleep. That's the trend. Millions of views. One of these videos had over 1 million likes. 1 million likes. And the internet is laughing. Now here's where I need y'all to stop laughing for a second. Because somebody made a response to one of those videos, and what he said has been sitting in my chest ever since I heard it. He said, and I'm paraphrasing the spirit of it, you understand what you're holding, right? That's not content. That's somebody's whole secret life. That's the thing a man would burn his entire world down to keep buried. And you put it on the internet for likes. And then he pointed at the actual footage and broke it down like a detective. He said, look at the frame. You can see the numbers on the door across the hall. You can see the light fixture. You can see the layout of the building. Anybody who knows that complex, anybody motivated enough, is not going to have a hard time figuring out exactly where that camera sits. And 1 million people have watched it. You think the people involved haven't seen it? You think nobody in that man's life recognized that hallway? And then he said the part that matters. He said, y'all are letting these trends walk you into situations you cannot walk back out of. Somebody is going to show up at one of y'all's doors. And when that knock comes, it's only got 2 ways it can go, and both of them end with you wishing you never touched that upload button. It's a lose-lose. And whatever happens, you ordered it yourself. Now here's the part that really got me. Because he said it might not even fall on the person who posted it. And I know that's real, because I remember a case. Some of y'all might remember it too. A few years back, down in Mississippi, there was a college kid, young man, out, living his truth, not hiding from anybody. And he got involved with another young man who was the complete opposite. This second young man came from a good family. Money, nice house, respectable name. The whole picture. And he was living a double life deep enough that nobody in his world had a clue. And when that relationship went bad, when the kid who had nothing to hide started talking about exposure, started making noise about telling people, the one with everything to lose didn't argue. He didn't fight him online. He apologized. He played it calm. He set up a meet. And he killed him. Killed him and left him somewhere out in those Mississippi woods. And that boy's family didn't find him for over a year. Over a year of not knowing. And the whole engine of that tragedy, the whole thing, was a secret. A man so afraid of being seen that being seen became worse than murder in his mind. That's not an old wives' tale. That's a case. That's court records and a funeral. So when I see people giggling over doorbell footage of some man's double life, I don't see content. I see a match being struck next to a gas can, and everybody in the comments is just hoping to watch the fire. Feel me? Alright, keep that in your pocket. Because now we gotta talk about Blueface. So if you've been anywhere near the internet this week, you saw the clips. Blueface has been streaming on Kick. Damn near living on Kick at this point. And the woman in the house with him is Nevaeh. Nevaeh Akira. She's pregnant with his baby, very pregnant. And the two of them have been broadcasting their whole domestic life to anybody who wants to watch. And listen, I want to be fair before I say anything else. I don't know these people. I don't know what's real and what's performance. Half of what happens on these streams is manufactured for moments, clips, donations, engagement. These folks know exactly where the cameras are. So I'm going to say that up front, and I'm going to say it once. Some of this might be a show, but some of it ain't. And you're going to know which parts one mean. So the first clip that started making the rounds, Blueface and Nevaeh are going back and forth. Not even screaming, just that cold, worn-out arguing that couples do when they've had the same fight 40 times. And in the middle of it, Blueface looks at the camera, not at her, at the camera, at the chat, and he tells on himself. He says she's scaring him. His words. He says he's trying to keep his composure, trying to look tough, but she's staring at him with. And this is the phrase that set the whole internet on fire. Them voodoo eyes. Voodoo eyes. Now, let me paint the picture so you understand why that landed the way it landed. Because Nevaeh is not hiding anything. That's the wildest part of this whole story. Nothing about this is a secret. She wears white. Head to toe. All white. Around the house. On stream. Everywhere. She wears the beads. And if you know anything at all, about Santeria, about Lakumi, about the Orisha traditions, you already know what all white and beads means. Those aren't fashion choices. Those are devotions. She prays at an altar in the home. She has said, openly, on camera, that she sits down and prays at her altar, and that if she could, she'd be in Atlanta with her people doing rituals. Her words. Not mine. Not speculation. Her words, on stream, in front of thousands. And the chat knows it too. The comments were moving so fast you could barely read them, but the ones people screenshotted told the whole story. People were saying she's a child of Ashen. That's the Orisha of love, sweetness, rivers, fertility, and they were warning Blueface. Warning him. Saying you don't understand what you're playing with. You keep making this woman cry while she's carrying your child. She doesn't even need to do anything to you. The energy you're creating is going to handle you all by itself. Somebody else said, her whole pregnancy has had no peace. Somebody else said, good, let her scare him, he earned it. And listen, I want you to notice something, because it matters for later. Even the people taking Nevaeh's side were not saying it's all a joke. Nobody in that chat was saying there's nothing going on. The argument was never about whether the spiritual stuff is real. The argument was about who deserves what. Sit with that. Because then came the clip that turned this from a story into a phenomenon. The soup. I know how that sounds. Stay with me. So there's another clip from the same stretch of streaming, and it starts off completely normal. Blueface is in the kitchen area, Nevaeh is cooking, and he asks her what's going on. And she gives him a one-word answer. Soup. That's it. Soup. And he goes, what? And she says it again. Soup. And there's this little pause, this little beat, and then the conversation wanders. Did you eat? Yeah, I ate. In and out. Oh, I did too. That's crazy. Normal couple noise. And then Blueface, half laughing, asks her the question straight up. He goes, so you do voodoo? And she doesn't flinch. She doesn't laugh. She doesn't say, baby, stop playing. She corrects his vocabulary. She says, good voodoo. And then she starts explaining. She calls them her man's blessings. She says, and this is a direct quote that has been clipped, reposted, and dissected hundreds of thousands of times now. I don't put nobody in a pot unless I need to. I don't put nobody in a pot unless I need to. Hollywood couldn't write that. A horror movie couldn't write that. This is a pregnant woman in a white dress standing over a stove telling the father of her unborn child, on a live broadcast, that putting people in a pot is a service she offers on an as-needed basis. And then, in the same breath, she says, come on, let's push me into labor, let's get the baby out. She talks about praying for a safe delivery, and then pivots directly into talking about the evilness that's coming for the people who deserve it, and how her Babalao, that's a priest, y'all, a Santeria priest, a high-ranking one, how her Babalao and her witch sister already put them in a pot. Not me, she says. Them. Like there's a division of labor. Like there's a whole operation. And then she looks at Blueface and reassures him. You're in a good jar, though. You're good. You're great. Nothing's wrong with you. I love you. You're in a good jar. I need everybody to understand what was just said in that kitchen, because the internet heard good jar and made memes, and I get it. It's funny. It's absurd. It's the kind of line that was born to be a soundbite. But listen to the architecture of it. There's a good jar, which means there are other jars. Jars that are not good. And the deciding factor between the good jar and the other jars, the entire classification system for where your soul gets shelved, is her mood, her judgment, whether she, quote, needs to. And Blueface is standing right there in his own kitchen finding out in real time that he's currently rated good jar. Emphasis on currently, and you can watch his face doing the math. You can actually see it. The man who has never once in his public life looked scared of anything is standing there nodding at a pot of soup like it's a parole officer. And then, and this is the detail that turned my stomach when I caught it, and I had to rewind 3 times to make sure I heard it right. She tells him he should get in the shower because he looks like yesterday. And then, out of nowhere, completely unprompted, she says, "I love to make boys cry." Oh my God, I was so good at that sport. That sport. Making boys cry is a sport. A sport she was good at. A sport she's describing in past tense like a retired athlete, while 7, 8 months pregnant, while stirring the soup, while the man she's talking about jars with is standing 3 feet away. And Blueface just kind of absorbs it, because what do you even say? What is the comeback to that? There isn't one. That's the thing about everything Nevaeh does in these clips. She never raises her voice, never makes a threat you could screenshot and send to a lawyer, never does anything you could point at and say there. That's the crime. It's all smiles and sweetness and soup and blessings. And somehow every single sentence leaves the room colder than she found it. Now here's where it goes from strange to genuinely unsettling. And this is the part where I stopped laughing completely. There's a moment later in the stream where Blueface starts walking toward the back of the house, toward the room where Nevaeh keeps her altar. And the kid is back there. And I am not exaggerating when I tell you that Blueface, face tattoos, rap sheet, all of it, physically recoils. He jumps. He gasps. He's stammering. "What are you doing in here? Why are you in here?" And he's backing up, and Nevaeh's voice floats in from the other room, calm as still water. "You want to join? Come join." And this man says, "Hell no. Hell no. We gotta get out. We gotta move." He's talking about moving out of the house, midstream, half joking. And I say half joking because the other half of him wasn't joking at all, and everybody watching knew it. And then people in the chat started pointing out something that I genuinely do not have an explanation for, and I'm not going to pretend I do. Watch the footage yourself. Every single time Blueface gets near that door, every time he angles toward that back room, the camera glitches. The feed stutters. The image tears. Not the whole stream. Not randomly. That door. That direction. Every time. Now, am I saying a Wi-Fi signal is scared of an altar? No. I'm a rational man. Internet streams glitch. Kick servers are held together with duct tape on a good day. I know all of that. But I also know that thousands of people watched it happen in real time, and every single one of them felt the same chill, and the comments under the reposts are full of people saying the same thing. The way y'all are laughing this off like it's skits and views is the scariest part of all. One person wrote, "The camera glitch says it all for me." Another one wrote, "This isn't entertainment. This is documentation." And I can't even argue with them, because here's the truth I keep circling back to. Even if every frame of this is performance, even if Nevaeh is the greatest actress of her generation and Blueface isn't on it, and the whole thing is engineered for engagement, the thing they're performing is a man being spiritually managed inside his own home, and they chose that because they knew it would feel real. It only works as content because it works as fear. Think about that. And let me tell you why Blueface, of all people, should have known better than to ever let this energy through his front door. Because this is not new. This wave, this open, casual, mainstream flirtation with this kind of practice, has been building in hip-hop for years now, and I have been watching it the whole time. Remember the Skrilla situation? The footage that came out, the rituals, the animals, the sacrifices, all of it framed as personal gain, as career fuel, as a shortcut? That wasn't underground. That was out in the open. And I said it then, and I'll say it now. I could have gone my entire life without knowing any of this world existed. The orishes, the pots, the jars, the offerings, all of it. I didn't go looking for it. It walked into the culture through the front door, wearing a smile, calling itself self-care, calling itself manifestation, calling itself ancestral, and now it's so normalized that a pregnant woman can say, "I don't put nobody in a pot unless I need to" on a live stream, and the dominant reaction is laughter. That's how far the line moved. And I need to be clear about where I stand, because I always am. I am going to leave this earth believing what I believe, and what I believe is in God. In Christ. That's my protection. That's the only covering I've ever needed, and the only one I ever will. And I'm not saying that to perform righteousness. I'm saying it because discernment is a survival skill, and a generation of young men is out here with none. Zero. They can't tell the difference between a woman who loves them and a woman who's documenting them, between a blessing and a binding, between dinner and a ritual, because nobody ever taught them that the spiritual world is real, and it does not care whether you believe in it. And that brings me to Blueface himself, because I know some of y'all are waiting for me to just unload on this man, and I'm going to, but not the way you think. But before I unload on him, you need to see something first, because patterns are what this channel is built on, and Blueface himself described this one with his own mouth, on camera, without ever realizing what he was confessing. Go back through the streams, all of them, the way I did. Blueface himself said it out loud, on camera, without even realizing what he was confessing to. He said there's a pattern he's noticed. Every time he leaves the house and comes back, she's cooking soup. Every time. Leave for an hour, soup. Leave for a day, soup. He said it himself. Soup, 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 soup. 6 times, rapid fire, like a man trying to laugh his way out of a realization. And then he said the most revealing thing of all. He said, I've never actually seen her do the voodoo. But that's probably what people who do voodoo want you to think, right? Stop. Read that back. That is a man narrating his own situation with the clarity of an outside observer and then continuing to live in it anyway. He sees the pattern. He said the pattern into a microphone. He knows the soup is the constant. He knows the timing. She doesn't cook when he's home. She cooks when he's gone. So the one thing he never witnesses is the preparation. And he knows how it works in the movies, in the stories, in every warning his grandmother ever gave anybody. The thing you're not supposed to see is the thing that matters. He knows all of it. He said all of it. And then he ate anyway. And y'all, I have rewound that clip more times than I will ever admit publicly, because it is the most perfect 3-second summary of the human condition I have ever found on the internet. Knowing is not protecting. Awareness is not armor. You can watch a man diagnose his own trap in high definition and then step right back into it, smiling, because the soup tastes good and the alternative is being alone with his own choices. That's not a Blueface problem. That's an everybody problem. How many people do you know? How many people have you been? Who saw the pattern, said the pattern out loud, and stayed for seconds? And while we're on the soup, let me address the detail that the whole internet ran with, because it deserves the 30 seconds. The soup is happening in the summer, in the heat. And people were clowning that. Soup season is winter. What kind of person is stirring pots in the middle of a heat wave? And the jokes wrote themselves, and I laughed at them too. I'm not above it. But sit with the detail a little longer, the way the old heads would. In the traditions we're talking about, the preparation is not about the weather. It's not about comfort food. The pot is the point. The stove is the workspace. If your practice involves cooking things for people, with intention, with prayer, with purpose, then soup isn't a meal, it's a medium. And a medium doesn't care what month it is. I'm not telling you that's what's happening in that kitchen. I'm telling you that's why the detail made millions of people's skin crawl at once. Because everybody felt the mismatch. Hot day, hot stove, hot pot, cold stare, and nobody could quite name what was wrong with the picture. The wrongness is the point. That's what wrongness feels like when it's being polite. Because here's the honest truth about Blueface. Nobody gets to this point by accident. Go back and look at who this man was when he first came out. Different face. Different energy, different eyes, even. Go look at the old interviews and tell me that's the same spirit looking out from behind all that ink. And I'm not one of those people who thinks tattoos are some moral statement on their own. They're not. But when a man keeps carving himself up year after year until his own mother can barely find his face anymore, that's not fashion, that's a map. That's a man writing his whole journey on his skin, and the journey it shows is not a peaceful one. The chaos with Krazian, the fights on camera, the jail stints, the industry machine that chewed him up, paid him well for the chewing, and left him streaming from his kitchen in the middle of the night for donations. Every single door Blueface ever walked through, somebody held it open for him and smiled, and every single one of those doors led somewhere a little darker. So when I see him now, standing in his own kitchen, afraid of soup, a grown man, afraid of soup, I don't just see a funny clip. I see the bill coming due. I see a man who spent years giving pieces of himself away to anything that promised him a shortcut. And now he's living in a house where the shortcuts have names and beads and altars, and he's finally scared, and he should be. He should have been scared 5 doors ago. And before anybody gets in the comments twisting what I'm saying, no, I am not saying Nevaeh is the villain of Blueface's story. That's too easy, and it's wrong. This man built this house brick by brick, choice by choice, long before she ever lit a candle in it. The cheating that he admitted to on stream, with his ex, while Nevaeh sat there pregnant, that wasn't a spell. That was a decision. The chaos that follows him everywhere he goes isn't something somebody cooked up in a pot. It's something he's been cooking himself, his whole adult life, in the most ironic pot of all. What Nevaeh represents, what she is in this story, whether she's fully serious, half serious, or performing, is a mirror. She is the first force in Blueface's life that he cannot fight, cannot charm, cannot outtalk, and cannot run from, because she isn't attacking him at all. She's just feeding him, loving him, blessing him, keeping him in the good jar. And he has no defense against it, because you can't square up with soup. You can't swing on a prayer. The man's whole toolkit is aggression and charisma, and neither one of them works in that kitchen. That's why he's scared. Not because of what she might be doing, because for the first time in his life, he is not the most unpredictable person in the room. Now, Here's where this story stops being about Blueface and Nevaeh at all, and starts being about you. About me. About everybody watching. And this is the part one need your full attention for, because this is the part that made me stop researching clips and start writing things down. After these streams blew up, I did what I always do. I went into the comments. Not just the stream chat. The reposts, the reaction videos, the TikToks, the threads, all of it. And I found something that I was not prepared for. Underneath the jokes, underneath the memes about the good jar and the voodoo eyes, there is an entire culture of people. And I'm going to be honest with you. It's almost entirely women in these particular comment sections, openly, proudly, publicly discussing psychological manipulation as a hobby. And I don't mean hinting at it. I mean confessing to it like it's a recipe swap. Listen to these. These are real. Screenshotted, reposted, still up as I'm recording this. One woman writes, "My best spell is making people think I did it. They manifest it upon themselves." Read that again. Slowly. Her best spell isn't a spell at all. It's a suggestion. It's planting a seed of fear in someone's mind, and then sitting back and letting their own paranoia do the work. She doesn't have to light a single candle. She just has to make him believe she did, and his own mind will build the curse, feed the curse, and live inside the curse, and she gets to watch. She calls that her best work. Another one writes, "I just tell people I hex them and they do everything else for me. Do everything else for her." Meaning the fear does the labor. Meaning the moment a person believes they've been targeted, they start interpreting every bad day, every headache, every flat tire, every argument as evidence. And the person who planted the seed never has to lift a finger again. That is not witchcraft. That is psychological warfare wearing witchcraft's clothes. And the people describing it are describing it the way you describe a life hack. A trick. A tip. Works like a charm. One of them wrote, and the pun was absolutely intended. Works like a charm. This works every time. Every time. Like a product review. 5 stars, would manipulate again. And then there was the one that genuinely stopped me cold. A woman wrote, and I want you to hear the whole thing. "My ex texted me once and said, 'You and your mom can stop trying to put spells on me. It's not working.' We hadn't done a thing. And she's laughing about it." That's the punchline of her story. And the replies are full of women telling the same story. "I've had 2 exes who thought I put spells on them. I've never done any spell work. I do crystals and yoga." And they're all laughing, all of them, at these men. At these men who were so destabilized, so genuinely frightened, that they sent accusing texts, lost sleep, changed their routines, lived differently, over nothing, over a suggestion, over a seed somebody planted for entertainment. Now, I want to be careful here, and I want to be fair, because fairness matters more to me than a viral moment. Is manipulation a women-only phenomenon? Absolutely not. There are men out here running psychological games so sophisticated they should be studied in universities. Liars, groomers, gaslighters. Men invented half the playbook, and I have never once pretended otherwise on this platform. But I would be lying to you, and I don't lie to you, if I told you I wasn't noticing a pattern in these specific corners of the internet. There is a growing, celebrated, monetized culture of spiritual intimidation aimed at men, and it's packaged as empowerment. It's sold as protection work, as self-love, as divine feminine energy. And some of it is exactly that. Let me be crystal clear. Faith traditions are real. They're deep. They're not inherently sinister, and millions of people practice them with clean hearts. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the ones in the comments saying the quiet part out loud. The ones who aren't practicing a religion, they're practicing a con. And the con is fear. And fear, planted in the mind of a person who loves you or lives with you or shares a child with you, is not empowerment. It's abuse with incense burning in the background. And here's the part nobody in those comment sections is thinking about. And this is where I need to land this plane. Remember what we talked about at the top of this video? Remember the doorbell camera? Remember Mississippi? Remember what happens when you play with the wrong person's sense of reality? Some of these women are out here planting fear seeds in men they barely know, for likes, for laughs, for the group chat. And they have no idea what kind of mind they're planting it in. You don't know what that man is carrying. You don't know what he's capable of, what he's afraid of, what he believes, or what he'll do if the belief takes root too deep. You think it's a game because for you it is one. But for the person on the receiving end, a curse, real or imagined, is a threat to his life. That's how it registers in the nervous system. That's how it registered in Mississippi. A threat to life. And people respond to threats to their life in ways you cannot script, cannot predict, and cannot take back. So when I read, "My best spell is making people think I did it," I don't read a flex. I read somebody playing with a loaded weapon and calling it a toy. And one of these days, somebody is going to aim that toy at the wrong person, and we are going to be watching a completely different kind of video about it. I pray I'm wrong. I don't think I am. And fellas, Since I know half my audience is y'all, the other side of this coin is yours to own. Because here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to say out loud. The only reason the suggestion game works is the condition of your own mind. Think about what we just walked through. Blueface didn't run out of that back room because of anything that physically touched him. Nothing touched him. He ran because of an idea, a bead, a bowl of soup, a stare, a camera glitch. His own imagination did all the heavy lifting and then carried him out of the room on top of it. And I say that with love because the man's fear is real and I'm not mocking it. I'm pointing at its engine. A person who is spiritually grounded, who knows what they believe, who has some discernment and some peace in their own spirit, is the hardest person in the world to hex. Not because of magic, but because fear has nowhere to live in them. The spell of suggestion needs empty space to grow in. It needs a mind with no anchor. So when I tell y'all to guard your spirit, I'm not being preachy. I'm being practical. Know what you believe. Build your life on something solid. Pay attention to who has access to your kitchen, your bed, your peace, and your mind. And I mean actually pay attention, not just enjoy the meals. Because whether the pod is literal or the pod is psychological, the mechanism is the same. Somebody close enough to feed you is close enough to shape you. Choose those people like your life depends on it. I'm not being dramatic. Your life does depend on it. Now, there's one more thread I have to pull, and it involves the family. Because if you think Nevaeh's energy is aimed only at Blueface, you haven't been paying attention to the sidelines. Reports have been circulating, and Blueface's own circle has basically confirmed it through their reactions, that Nevaeh sent a message to his mother. And attached to that message were beads. Voodoo beads is how the family described it, with a warning attached. Watch your son. Now you tell me what that is. Because I'll tell you what it isn't. It isn't random. A pregnant woman sending beadwork to her man's mother with a warning attached is either a spiritual statement, a psychological chess move, or both. And there is no version of it that's casual. That's a message designed to land in a mother's mind and stay there, growing, forever. Every time that mother looks at her son now, the beads are in the room. Every phone call, every visit, every holiday, beads in the room. Whether you believe in any of this or not, you have to respect the engineering of it, the same way you'd respect a chess grandmaster while they're taking your king. That's not a hot-tempered girlfriend lashing out. That's someone who understands that the deepest leverage over any man is not his fear, it's his mother's. And that, right there, is the real subject of this whole video, and I want to name it plainly before we go. This story was never really about soup, or beads, or altars, or camera glitches. Those are just the costumes. The story underneath, the one that made 50 million people stop scrolling, is about something every human being alive is wired to fear. The discovery that the safest place in your life might be the most dangerous one. Home is supposed to be where the walls keep the threats out. The entire horror of the Blueface situation, the entire horror of the doorbell camera situation, the entire horror of Mississippi. All three of the threads we pulled tonight are the same thread. It's not the stranger in the dark. It's the hallway you trust. It's the kitchen you trust. It's the person whose cooking you've eaten 100 times. The modern world keeps telling us the dangers are out there, in the streets, in the apps, in the strangers, while every single story that actually keeps us up at night is about the threat that was already inside, already seated, already serving dinner. That's why you couldn't click away. That's why you're still here. And that's why you're going to check the comments the second this video ends to see if anybody else felt it too. They did. 50 million of them did. And one more thing before I get out of here, because this is the question I know is burning in the comments already, and honestly it's the question I can't stop asking myself. Is any of this real? The voodoo, the jars, the pots, the whole production? Is Nevaeh a genuine practitioner living her faith out loud while the internet turns it into a circus? Or is this the most committed piece of performance art in streaming history? Because here's what I keep coming back to. The answer might not matter. If it's real, a man is living in a situation he is visibly, physically afraid of, with a baby on the way, and the whole world is laughing at him for it. And if it's performance, if two people sat down and decided that the best way to get views was to act out a spiritual hostage situation for strangers, then the thing we should actually be talking about is what it says about us that they were right, that it worked, that we showed up by the millions to watch a man be quietly afraid in his own kitchen. Either way, somebody in that house is not okay. Either way, a baby is about to be born into it. And either way, the camera will still be rolling when it happens, you know it will, and we'll all be watching again. That's the part that should scare everybody. So now I'm handing it to y'all, because I genuinely want to hear where you land on this. Number 1, real or performance? Is Nevaeh dead serious? Or is this the greatest long con in kick history? Give me your read. Number 2, and answer this one honestly, fellas especially. If you walked into your own home and found an altar, beads, and a pot of something with your name on it, are you staying or are you gone? And number 3, the common confessions I read you, they might best spell crowd. Is that just internet bravado, people talking tough for likes? Or have you actually lived through somebody trying to run that kind of manipulation on you? I read every comment. I mean that. The best stories from last week's video were wilder than anything I found on my own, so top comments might make it into the next one. And speaking of the next one, keep your notifications on, because the rabbit hole I fell into while researching this video does not end with jars and soup. There's a whole economy behind this. People paying real money, serious money, for work, for readings, for removals, for protection, and some of the names attached to it would stop your heart. I'm not saying any more than that tonight. That's next time. Y'all know how we do it. Watch your spirit, watch your circle, and watch who has the keys to your kitchen. This is the corner of the internet where we laugh together, but we learn together too. I love every single one of y'all. Stay dangerous, stay discerning, and I'll catch you on the next one.